Okay, so final episode, spoilers, duh. Hopper and Joyce need to get into the underground Russian vault to get the keys to shut down the giant energy gun thingy that's keeping the portal open. They know the code for the safe is the number of Planck's constant. The only thing is, they don't know all the numbers. Dustin gets a bright idea to call his nerdy girlfriend that he met at summer camp, and she makes him sing a song with her for 3 whole minutes before giving them this code. Hopper and Joyce get the keys, the Terminator catches up with them, Hopper throws him in the energy gun thingy, which blows up and will eventually kill him. Meanwhile, Billy gets skewered by the mind flare after coming to his senses and trying to save the kids. Joyce turns the keys, boom, Hopper dies, and Suzie isn't affected at the very least by any of this. But, rewind real quick, what if Suzie didn't make Dustin sing before she gave him the code? And what if Hopper and Joyce shut down the energy gun thing 3 minutes earlier so the mind flare was killed off before it had time to kill Billy? And Hopper and Joyce could leave the lab before the Terminator found them, resulting in Hopper not dying. Therefore, Suzie and Dustin singing is what caused everyone to die. Basically, Suzie killed Hopper and Billy. Therefore, a Demogorgon needs to eat Suzie in season 4. Well, maybe not entirely, but it sure seems like if they had an extra 3 minutes in their favor, it sure would have helped Hopper and Billy stay much more alive than they ended up. Well, I mean, Hopper being dead in quotation marks. We talked about in the last video. If you haven't watched it, I'll put an end card at the end of this video. Go watch it and you'll know what we're talking about. Now, I will admit I smiled so hard when they started singing NeverEnding Story and couldn't stop laughing as these adorable kids were in their own little blissful world while everyone else was either running for their lives or banging their head on the walls waiting for the song to end. But if something so lighthearted and unnecessary was saved until after everybody was safe, Hopper and Billy might still be with us. But that's what we're going to be talking about for the next few minutes. Was it Suzie's fault that Hopper and Billy died in the end? Or was it even Suzie's fault at all? I think I figured out it could be 3 different people's fault who killed them, so make sure you watch until the end of the video because we're going to get to the bottom of this within the next few minutes. And don't forget, I'll be here making fun videos for you guys every single week. By subscribing, you can stay up to date on all the latest movies and theories that everyone's going to be talking about. All you have to do is go down and hit that red button that says subscribe, and you'll become part of this community that's filled with tons of people that love to talk about the same things that you love to talk about. But without wasting any more time, unlike some people, cough cough Suzie, let's jump right into this theory and figure out who needs to be fed to a Demogorgon in season 4, shall we? Now please bear with me, I've noticed my voice is starting to give out as I've been sick the last week, but this should be an interesting video. Now this scene was so completely and ridiculously out of place during the final battle, but I honestly think that's what made it so enjoyable. For such a cute and adorable scene to happen in the midst of this massive looming threat, it creates this huge unexpected change of tone that completely caught everyone off guard. And it was the last thing I think anyone was expecting. It was nice to see the contrast of the innocent kids in this situation compared to the cynical and worn down adults. That sense of wonder and fun usually gets lost with age. So I love that we get to constantly see that contrast and reflection between the kids and adults' perspectives throughout the show. And I think this scene did a better job than any other. Throughout the whole song, I had the biggest smile on my face. And I was dying laughing as they started showing everyone's reactions to them singing during the literal end of the world. They showed poor Hopper standing there just in utter disbelief that these 2 little kids decided to do a musical number as the fate of the world is in their hands. And poor Joyce, she's gone through so much this season as is with all of her magnets constantly falling off the fridge, and she's finally trying to do something important and save the world, and these kids start singing at the worst possible time, and she just goes over and starts banging her head against the wall. I died at this part. One of the best scenes in season 3 hands down. You just can't watch that scene and not have a smile on your face. I haven't laughed that hard in so long. What they did is literally like if I stopped this YouTube video and waited for you to subscribe so you didn't miss anything while I was trying to talk. Oh, you're back? Right. So I was a little taken back to hear that later on, Dustin and Suzie's duet received a bunch of hate online. Now, I know the internet can be quick to hate on just about anything, but 2 little kids singing? What could possibly warrant so much hate towards this scene? Well, it's not completely all wrong. If you think about it, if it wasn't for Suzie and Dustin's spontaneous musical number, Hopper would still be alive. They waited too long for Suzie and Dustin to finish singing to execute the plan properly. They took so much time that fake Schwarzenegger had enough time to catch up with them before they could close the portal. And because the portal wasn't shut down fast enough, the mind flare killed Billy. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the whole musical scene. It was cute and quirky, and seeing everyone react to it was hilarious. But it killed Hopper. And Billy too. And people are directly blaming Suzie for their deaths because she refused to give Dustin the code that Hopper so desperately needed. Everybody was waiting on her. If she had just given them the code and then decided to start singing, Hopper and Joyce would have shut the machine down and closed the portal to save Billy from the mind flare, and they would have had enough time to escape the Russian lab before Terminator caught back up with them, meaning Hopper would be alive too. But here's the thing. I don't think Suzie should get the blame for this one. Yeah, Dustin told her he's saving the world and everything, but how was she supposed to know that he was serious? If one of my close friends said they needed to know Harambe's birthday because the fate of the world was at stake, I would just laugh it off and think they were just pulling my leg. Wouldn't you? And yes, I get that there's a slight possibility that he could have told her about 11 and the Demogorgons and the Upside Down while they're at summer camp, which I don't think he would have done. I would like to think he would have embraced the time away from the world almost ending, but even if he did tell her, there's a good chance she would just think he was talking about a game of Dungeons and Dragons with Mike and Lucas and Will, which he almost for sure told her about. If anything, Suzie saved the world. When everyone else came to a brick wall, she was the only one who knew the number by heart and let them save the world as they did. She did her part just like everyone else did in shutting down the Upside Down and the mind flare that invaded their world. Without her, what would they have done, huh? To blame her for the entire thing because she wanted to sing with her boyfriend and didn't know any better is ridiculous. She did an amazing job and did more to save the world than half the show's supporting cast. So the internet needs to just calm down on feeding Suzie to all the Demogorgons. I think she's in the clear on this one. But if we're going to be looking at who's at fault like this, there seems to be more guilty people to blame for Hopper and Billy's deaths than Suzie. Now, you can make dozens of little nitpicks like that, but for some reason everyone wanted to blame Suzie, the one person who had the least amount of awareness of what the heck was actually happening. At first, people started shifting the blame to Dustin, saying he should have done a better job of explaining the urgency of the situation, or that he should have just started singing as soon as possible, which would only have saved a few seconds, but in the end, that's what it came down to. But honestly, leave the 12-year-old alone. There's worse that people have done. Now, first we're going to look at our boy Alexei, which, R.I.P. buddy, has the most leeway because he's an adorable Russian and was the most wholesome thing this season blessed us with. Technically, when he was first trying to tell Hopper and Joyce about the keys and how to shut everything down, he told Murray that the code to the vault was Planck's constant. If he would have just said the actual code they needed, they would have had it when they needed it instead of taking a wild guess. But he did his best. They wouldn't have even known how to shut it down if it wasn't for him, so he's off the hook. Plus, when Murray translated it, he said it was a famous number and that he knew it. If anything, I feel like Murray's the one who should be blamed here. Alexei told him that he had to enter Planck's constant to get into the vault, and Murray thought he knew it, which would normally be fine. But when the fate of the world is depending on this number, it's definitely worth double checking. They could have easily stopped by a library or a bookstore and made sure they got the number right so they didn't get there and realize they didn't know it. Which is exactly what happened. Suzie was only at fault because Murray didn't know the number in the first place. If he knew it, there would be no need to contact Suzie ever. I just feel like it's unfair to place all the blame on this little girl who's in a completely different state with no idea of the magnitude of what's going on, whereas this grown adult was given the code and simply just didn't double check himself before showing up to save the world. You guys gotta subscribe, this is killing my voice while I'm sick. But also, Joyce did an oopsie earlier on which could have saved Hopper and Billy's life down the road. Now, remember that one part where Hopper had a gun to Grigory's head? Well, wait, he had a gun to Terminator's head. Why didn't he just pull the trigger? If he would have killed the baddie then and there, he wouldn't have caught up to them in the end and Hopper and Billy would still be alive. Okay, point for Hopper messing up. He's definitely to blame here. But like I was saying, Hopper and the Terminator are fighting after Hopper doesn't pull the trigger for some reason, and Hopper's pistol goes flying. The Terminator's gun goes flying. Hopper pulls out this thing that looks like it really hurts and takes the Terminator out at the knees with it, and he seems to have the upper hand finally. And then Joyce. She grabs Hopper's handgun and just throws it right to the Russian. I don't know what she was thinking or when she got her superhuman arm, but I feel like this is one of the most unexcusable mess-ups of the show, so for that we're gonna shake our heads and consider that a big fat point for Joyce. And Hopper could have saved himself too though. He's partially to blame here. First of all, if they had just simply wedged something in between the door or secured it in some way, the Terminator couldn't have sneaked up and surprised them. They could have turned the keys, saved Billy and the kids, and then had time on their own to fight the Terminator with much better odds. But also, like, say they didn't wedge the door shut and the Terminator still caught up with them and they still had their fight. All Hopper had to do was not throw the Russian into the giant energy gun pulsing death trap thingy, and it wouldn't have exploded, trapping him on the other side and eventually killing him. He was definitely winning, and all he had to do was throw him over the railing or choke him out or kill him in some other way that didn't involve exploding the energy gun thingy. So in that sense, he kinda did it to himself. But I mean, at this point, we could also say that if 11 hadn't touched the Demogorgon in the void, that there would have never been a gate at Hawkins, and the Russians would have never tried to open a second gate, and then try to reopen the first one, and then Hopper wouldn't have needed to sacrifice himself to close it. Therefore, 11 killed Hopper. We could do this for anyone. I don't know why Suzie got all the hate for it when she was only brought into it in the first place because Murray couldn't remember the right number. I feel like if anything, he should be the one to blame here. But if we look at this realistically and take a step back from a writing standpoint, Hopper was going to die anyways. The Terminator would have still caught up with him eventually, or in some way they would have killed him off. And as for Billy, I'm not sure he even could survive if he wasn't skewered by the Mind Flayer. You gotta remember, just like everyone else the Mind Flayer took control of, he ingested a lot of chemicals just in case it needed to use him for parts. While he was being controlled, it seemed like his conscience was still there in the end, but if the connection ever ended, I'm not sure how long his actual body would last. I feel like their fates were already sealed, and no matter what the characters did, they would eventually end up how they did, so there's no need to place any blame on anyone. I mean, unless you want to casually throw it in Murray's lap. But as for Suzie, they could possibly be setting her up to eventually become another member of the gang in season 4, or at least to play a bigger role than in this last season. Maybe we'll get to see Dustin and Suzie at Camp Nowhere next year, and maybe Steve will end up there too, trying to come and get him or sign up as a volunteer and then fall in love with a counselor or something since they yeeted Robin out from under him in the last season. It'd be cool to see them on another adventure together, but honestly, I could do another entire video on all my thoughts for season 4 alone. Maybe comment down below if that's something you guys are interested in. I'm gonna put an end card here to subscribe. All you have to do is click that circle if you enjoyed the video. It couldn't be any easier, and comment down below on what you think about the whole Suzie being blamed for Hopper and Billy's deaths, and who you think should really be fed to a Demogorgon in season 4. And then go watch my other video on what actually happened to Hopper and how they tricked us all. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I will see you in the comments. Peace.